Have you ever stopped to think why some people manage to spark an almost magnetic attraction while others go unnoticed? Why do some men seem to have this inexplicable power to make a woman unable to stop thinking about them, while you try so hard and always seem to be in the background? What if I told you there's only one thing, a single fundamental strategy that separates those who live in oblivion from those who become unforgettable? I'm not talking about cheap tricks or psychological manipulation. I'm talking about something much deeper and more powerful, something that, once you master it, will make her not only notice your presence, but become completely obsessed with you. Does it sound impossible? Get ready, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change the way you understand attraction. The truth is, most men make the same fatal mistake. They try to impress, they try to be what they think she wants, they try to fit into a mold that isn't theirs. And the result? Frustration, rejection, and that painful feeling of never being good enough. But there's one single thing you need to do to completely turn this game around. And that thing is to develop what I call gravitational presence. It's not about what you say or do specifically for her. It's about who you become in the process. It's about creating a force of attraction so powerful that she won't be able to resist. And I'm going to show you exactly how to make that happen. First, you need to understand the fundamental concept behind female obsession. Women don't become obsessed with men who are always available, who do everything for them, who give up their own lives to please them. That's the opposite of what creates obsession. Obsession is born from mystery, from challenge, from the feeling that she has found something rare and valuable. Think of it as if you were a raw diamond. Most men try to polish themselves too much, become too shiny, too obvious. But true value lies in rarity, in authenticity, in that unique quality that cannot be replicated or faked. Imagine for a moment you're at a party. You see that guy who's trying to impress everyone, talking loudly, bragging, desperate for attention. Now imagine another man, calm, centered, who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. He's genuinely enjoying the moment, chatting with whoever approaches him, but without that desperate need to please. Which of the two do you think sparks more curiosity? Which of the two makes people think about him after the party ends? The answer is obvious, but few men manage to embody that energy naturally. Gravitational presence begins with a radical shift in your mindset. You need to stop seeing women as prizes to be won and start seeing them as human beings who, just like you, seek genuine connections and memorable experiences. When you change that perspective, something magical happens. You stop acting like a desperate salesman trying to push a product and start acting like someone who has something valuable to offer, but doesn't need to convince anyone of it. Let me tell you a story that perfectly illustrates this concept. I met a guy named Ryan who was the typical nice guy, always available, always agreeing with everything, always trying to please. He did everything for the women he was interested in, but always ended up in the friend zone. One day after another, painful rejection. He decided to change. He didn't change to become a jerk or a manipulator. He simply decided to focus on himself, on his own goals, on his own evolution. He started working out, reading more, developing interesting hobbies, building a solid social circle. And you know what happened? The same women who used to ignore him started seeking him out, not because he was trying to impress them, but precisely because he had stopped trying. Second, you need to master the art of emotional scarcity. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means understanding that your attention, your time, and your emotional energy are valuable resources that should not be distributed indiscriminately. When you give your all right off the bat, when you're always available, always responding to messages instantly, always saying yes to everything, you become predictable. And predictability is the #1 killer of attraction. Think about how the things we desire most in life work. That dream car, that exotic trip, that professional achievement. Part of what makes these things so desirable is precisely the fact that they are not easily accessible. If everyone could have a Porsche tomorrow, it would lose much of its appeal. The same principle applies to human relationships. When you become too accessible, too predictable, too easy to have, you lose the element of challenge that fuels obsession. But be careful. Emotional scarcity isn't about playing games or manipulating. It's about having a genuinely interesting and busy life where she is an important part, but not the center of everything. It's about having healthy boundaries and respecting them. It's about valuing your own time and energy as much as you value hers. When you act this way, you subconsciously communicate that you are someone of high value, someone she needs to work to win and keep. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you've just met an interesting woman. The natural temptation is to want to talk to her all the time, schedule dates every week, always be present. But what happens when you do that? You remove all the mystery, all the anticipation, all the desire to discover more about you. Instead, imagine if you maintained contact intermittently, but meaningfully. Messages that truly add value to the conversation instead of just filling the silence. Dates that are memorable experiences instead of predictable routines. You create a rhythm that keeps her always wanting more. Now, if you're finding this difficult, or that it goes against your natural instincts, you're right. It is difficult. Our primitive brain programs us to seek security through constant proximity. When we like someone, we want to be close, always in contact. But that's precisely why few men manage to spark true obsession. They can't control these primitive impulses and end up giving themselves away completely too soon. Third, you need to develop what I call authentic magnetism. This goes far beyond physical appearance or social status. It's about cultivating internal qualities that naturally draw people into your orbit. Genuine charisma, intelligent humor, passion for something greater than yourself, the ability to make others feel special in your presence. These are the qualities that create deep and lasting connections. Authentic magnetism begins with deep self-knowledge. You need to know who you are, what your values are, what drives you, what makes you unique. Most men never do this internal work. They live following social scripts, trying to be generic versions of what they think is attractive. But true attraction comes from authenticity, from the courage to be genuinely yourself, with all your qualities and imperfections. Think about the men you know who naturally attract women. I'm not just talking about the good-looking or rich ones. I'm talking about those who have that special energy, who light up the room when they arrive, who make people feel good in their presence. What do they have in common? They are comfortable in their own skin. They are not trying to be someone else. They have embraced who they are and turned that into their greatest strength. Developing authentic magnetism requires constant practice. It means regularly stepping out of your comfort zone. It means developing social skills through genuine interactions with all kinds of people, not just women you find attractive. It means cultivating genuine interests that you are passionate about and that make you grow as a person. It means learning to tell stories in an engaging way, to truly listen, to create memorable moments. Let me share a powerful technique that few know. When you're talking to her, instead of trying to impress with your achievements or qualities, focus on creating positive emotions. Make her laugh, make her feel understood, make her experience adventure or curiosity. People forget what you said, but they never forget how you made them feel. And when you consistently make someone feel amazing in your presence, that person will naturally want more of those moments. But here's the secret most don't understand. Authentic magnetism isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being genuinely human, vulnerable when appropriate, able to laugh at yourself, to admit mistakes, to show your passions and fears. This authentic humanity creates a much deeper connection than any facade of perfection ever could. Fourth, you need to master the concept of progressive emotional investment. Obsession isn't born overnight. It's built through a series of intense and positive emotional experiences that make her invest more and more in you. Each interaction should add a new layer of connection, a new level of emotional intimacy, a new reason for her to think about you when you're not around. The mistake most men make is revealing everything about themselves right off the bat. They dump their entire life story on the first date, show all their cards, leave nothing to the imagination. But mystery is an essential component of obsession. You need to reveal yourself in layers, as if you were a fascinating book she can't stop reading. Each chapter reveals something new, something unexpected, something that makes her want to know more. Imagine your personality is like an iceberg. Most people only see the tip, the surface, but below the water exists a complex and fascinating world. Your job is to reveal this world gradually, so that each discovery is an exciting experience. Maybe on the first date she discovers your sense of humor. On the second, your passion for some unusual hobby. On the third, a vulnerability you rarely share. Each revelation should be authentic but strategic. Emotional investment also works through the principle of reciprocity. When she shares something personal with you, she is investing emotionally. When she laughs at your jokes, when she opens up about her fears, when she trusts you with her secrets, each of these actions strengthens the emotional bond. Your role is to create a safe and stimulating environment where this kind of sharing happens naturally. Now give a like and subscribe to the channel if you're finding this content valuable. Comment below which of these strategies resonated with you most so far. Your interaction helps this content reach more men who need this transformation. Returning to emotional investment, it's crucial to understand that it should be mutual but not equal. You should be genuinely interested in her as a person, but always maintaining that element of mystery, that feeling that there's more to discover. It's a delicate balance between openness and reserve, between availability and scarcity, between predictability and surprise. One of the biggest mistakes I see men make is trying to speed up this process. They want to create deep connection immediately. They want to skip steps. They want guarantees that she's interested. But obsession is like a bonfire. You can't just throw gasoline on it and expect it to last. You need to build it carefully, add wood gradually, blow on it just right to keep the flame alive and growing. Fifth, and perhaps most important, you need to understand the power of strategic absence. There's a saying that absence makes the heart grow fonder, and that is absolutely true when applied correctly. When you're always present, always available, you become part of the scenery. But when you know when to step back, when to give space, when to let her miss you, you create an emotional vacuum that can only be filled by you. Strategic absence isn't about disappearing without explanation or playing with her feelings. It's about having a rich and complete life that naturally creates moments where you are unavailable. It's about traveling, having important commitments, being focused on your projects. When she knows you have an interesting life going on, your absence isn't interpreted as disinterest, but as evidence that you are someone with purpose and direction. Think about how the best TV series work. They always end the episode at a moment of tension, leaving you wanting more. You keep thinking about what will happen, theorizing, anticipating the next episode. The same principle applies here. When you know how to end an interaction on a high note, when you know how to leave conversations open, when you create anticipation for the next meeting, you keep her engaged even when you're not present. But be careful. There's a fine line between strategic absence and emotional neglect. If you disappear for too long, if you're too inconsistent, if she can't count on you for anything, the effect reverses. Instead of creating desire, you create frustration and eventually disinterest. The secret is to be consistently inconsistent, present enough to keep the connection alive, absent enough to keep the desire burning. Now I'm going to share with you a truth that few men are ready to hear. The only thing you really need to do for her to become obsessed with you is to become genuinely obsessed with your own life. When you are passionate about your purpose, when you wake up every day excited about your projects, when you are building something meaningful, you radiate an energy that is absolutely irresistible. Women are naturally attracted to men with direction, with purpose, with passion for something greater than themselves. Not because they want to compete with your goals, but because they want to be part of something grand. They want to be beside someone who is going somewhere, not someone who is standing still waiting for them to give meaning to his life. Think of all the great romances in history. The men who inspired all-consuming passions were rarely those who lived only for their beloveds. They were artists obsessed with their art, leaders dedicated to their causes, explorers in search of new frontiers. Their primary passion was not the woman, but she felt privileged to be part of the journey. This doesn't mean you should treat her as a second priority or that you should be emotionally distant. It means you should have a vision for your life that goes beyond any relationship. When you have that, when you are genuinely building something meaningful, you become the type of man who inspires obsession because you represent growth, adventure, possibility. And here's the final paradox you need to understand. The less you need her obsession, the more likely you are to win her over. When you are complete in yourself, when your happiness and fulfillment don't depend on her, you become infinitely more attractive. You stop emanating that energy of need that repels and start emanating an energy of abundance that attracts. This doesn't happen overnight. It requires deep inner work. It requires you to face your fears and insecurities. It requires you to build a life that you genuinely love living. But when you do that work, when you become that man, the dynamic changes completely. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop begging for attention and start commanding it naturally. Let me be completely honest with you. Not every woman will become obsessed with you, no matter how much you implement these strategies. And that's okay, because when you become the best version of yourself, when you develop gravitational presence, you attract the right women into your life. Those who resonate with your energy, who share your values, who complement your journey. The obsession we are talking about here is not something superficial or temporary. It is a deep attraction based on genuine admiration, on real emotional connection, on meaningful shared experiences. It is the kind of obsession that creates extraordinary relationships, not just empty conquests. So, to recap, the only thing you need to do is develop gravitational presence through deep self-knowledge, intelligent emotional scarcity, authentic magnetism, progressive emotional investment, and strategic absence. But deep down, it all comes down to becoming a man of genuine value who lives an extraordinary life. Now it's your turn. Take these concepts and start applying them today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Start small. Maybe work on self-knowledge. First, then emotional scarcity. Build momentum gradually. And remember, this isn't about manipulation or tricks. It's about genuinely becoming the kind of man who naturally inspires admiration and desire. If this content made sense to you, share it with a friend who needs to hear this. Leave a comment below about which insight impacted you the most. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week I'll bring even deeper strategies on how to keep this obsession alive long term. The transformation begins. Now the question is, are you ready to become unforgettable?